Hi, everyone. Welcome. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Well, those of you who were here last night, you're going to hear the same speech over again, so I apologize. My name is Dr. Jean Dubrow, and this semester I'm serving as the Interim Director of Creative Writing, and I teach poetry in the Department of English. I also serve as one of the judges, along with Corey Marks, who's unfortunately sick tonight and couldn't be here, for the UNT Rilke Prize. So thank you all for joining us to celebrate Chris Abani, this year's winner of the prize. It's a national award that recognizes a book demonstrating exceptional artistry and published in the previous year by a mid-career poet, someone who has already published at least 2 books. The prize, named after the great German poet, comes with a $10,000 award, which would not be possible without the generous support from UNT's Department of English and the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, so thank you to both of them. Every year we receive an extremely strong pool of submissions. This year we had over 200 books submitted for consideration. Early on, it became clear that Chris Abani's Smoking the Bible stood out as the winner. It's an exceptionally poignant and skillfully crafted collection. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you to buy a copy. We have some up here at the front and also in the back, and you can get your copy signed at the end of the reading. So I'd like to now invite doctoral student Daniel Devon to give Chris a proper introduction. Daniel is a very fine poet in his own right. He's currently in his second year here at UNT in our PhD program in creative writing. So please help me to welcome Daniel to the stage.
Thank you, Jean. I kind of have the urge to turn off this projector.
If you can figure out how to do it.
I might not be able to do that without too much awkwardness. You know what? It's okay. Good evening. Chris Abani was born in Efikbo, Ebonyi State, Nigeria, and received his first publication, a short story, at the age of 10. He published his first novel, Masters of the Board, at 16, and for writing about an ex-Nazi officer who stages a coup in Nigeria, he was imprisoned for 6 months. The charge was that the novel provided actual instructions on how to overthrow then-President Ibrahim Babangida, who himself had come to power by way of coup d'etat. After the publication of his novel Sirocco in 1987, Abani was again imprisoned, this time for a year at Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison, known for its harsh and inhumane treatment of prisoners. Upon release, he composed a number of anti-government plays, which were performed on the street near government offices. He was then imprisoned a third time and placed on death row. However, in 1991, he was granted release and immediately went into exile with his mother and 4 siblings, settling in the United Kingdom. Chris Abani is the author of 4 novels, 2 novellas, a book of essays entitled The Face, and 8 books of poetry. The recipient of the PEN USA Freedom to Write Award, the Prince Claus Award, a Lannan Literary Fellowship, a Hurston Wright Legacy Award, a PEN Beyond the Margins Award, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. He has lived in the United States since 2001 and has taught at the University of California, Riverside. He is currently Board of Trustees Professor of English at Northwestern University. I'd like to say a few words now about Chris Abani's sublime, elemental, and transfiguring book, this year's Rilke Prize winner, Smoking the Bible, by way of a fragment that comes down to us over 2.5 millennia from the pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus. It speaks, like many of them do, to the nature of the soul, the cosmos, what it means to be human, a conscious being. Like our guest and reader this evening, Heraclitus was a man surprisingly and intimately attuned not only to language and the mind, but the natural intelligence of the body and the bare truth of physical sensibility. If everything were turned to smoke, the ancient Greek writes, the nose would be the seat of judgment. Thus, in the abysmal dark, the soul is known by scent. If we are to take this as fact, and probably we should, then the soul of this book is hot rice and braised goat, chili, curry, rhubarb pie, cola nut, calabash, black tea, sugarcane, milk, ahunji or African basil, palm oil, gin, mango, onions, carrots, and tomatoes, oregano, thyme, ash, and smoke. These scents, like beacons in the wilderness of memory, lead Abani's speaker and the reader on what he calls a pilgrimage in song, from the cornfields of the American Midwest to the cornfields of Africa, from the Mediterranean island of Lampedusa to Italy, Atlanta, Jamaica, Rio, Evanston, Illinois, and Nsukka, Nigeria, to learn the ways in which ritual is journey, atonement is real, and words sung right can save us. Firmly in the tradition of writing as journey, in the lineage of Homer, Dante, Chaucer, and the writers of the King James Bible, the pages of this book become for us the windows of a passing train, each square framing a memory, a certain slant or shade of light, each one, quote, tempering it, as the poet writes, to grace. We, the reader who take part in this journey, are welcomed, called in by the radiant stillness of Abani's images. The cracked shell of a boiled egg, patterned in a salted and sharp light. A pigeon riding into high winds, utterly still. A cement bathroom mottled by green moss. A white horse at dusk, running on an island of green. Robes catching fire from a censer. A page of the Bible burning, the smoke becoming a white egret. We're called in by a measured voice we trust for its utter equanimity and willingness to show us even the ugly, the bloody and broken with compassion and, yes, grace. Such travel sometimes feels like labor, and often it is, but what's clear is that Abani knows that in order to center in the still point of ritual, to abide in the now of the lyric, one must fly, even flee, into memory, the future. For the arc of a heart becomes a circle, and death is merely another kind of resurrection, butterflies startled up from fallen flesh. In this sense, every one of these poems acts as a mnemonic spur to metamorphosis and the presencing in the body it requires. In simplest terms, Smoking the Bible is an elegy, the story of a man mourning his older brother. In the process, he reckons with his memory of an abusive but loving Igbo father and an English mother. As Abani writes, though we know grief cannot raise the dead, we speak the spells nonetheless. The poet tells the story as a kind of ritual reenactment, an actual, I dare say, therapeutic reckoning. He writes that it is an elegy written on a white sheet of paper, rolled up and ignited, a burnt offering, ascending a ladder of smoke. These are not poems as entertainment, nor mere instances of the poet's intellect on display, though they are this as well. Remarkably, they manage to transcend generic and stylistic borders altogether, the lyric narrative divide, the poem as high or low art form, the poem as elusive or a ruse. They revel in their own energetic telling and the epiphanies they offer to us nearly as sacrament. They are full-bodied in this sense, lived in and hard-won. As Abani writes, grief is the beast we must all ride, for the sublime yields only after the grotesque has been traveled with grace, a living. Such travel we might call verse, in the original and true meaning of a turning in song. And as it turns, we are intellectually, emotionally, and physically caught up in its motion. By the close of the final poem in Smoking the Bible, and lines that I am convinced are a nod to the St. Lucian poet Derek Walcott, another guiding light in this book, the poet writes, if you listen, in the book I'm reading, it is raining. We do listen, and in this moment, poet, speaker, and reader are one in the fragrance of water, the sound of transparent music. To this, one can't help but say, Amen. Please join me in welcoming Chris Abani.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me? We should sort this voice thing out. As big as I am, I should sound like Barry White, but I don't. I sound like Alvin the Chipmunk. That was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you. That's the in the Igbo, my father's people, they say that to see is the true love, because to actually see without turning away, and so that's a really beautiful way to be seen. So thank you. You're gonna make me tear up, and I haven't even started reading the difficult poems yet. I'm a man who cries a lot, which is good. because then you have good excuses to eat ice cream. So thank you for the amazing honor of this prize, and thank you to everyone. It's really, everyone has been so hospitable and so kind to me, even random strangers in town, which has been really nice. And it's nice to see old friends and to realize that the lives of people I work with intersect with the lives of people who work here. And you're reminded how small the world is, and not because of social media, but because of this enduring human thing we have. So typically, I'm always nervous when I read, so my voice trembles a bit. Just ride with it. Some poets do a beautiful thing where they set up every poem as they go through the book. I don't do that, unfortunately. I spend a lot of time in a hole in the ground in a cell, so I like to take it out on the audience. So what I will do is I'll kind of set up some of the ideas, and then I'll just read all the way through. You don't have to do anything, just sit with the poems, however they feel, and at the end we can talk about them. You can throw tomatoes, you can boo, it's all fine. But just allow yourself just to have the experience of it, as it were. So the book, it was so funny because it's called Smoking the Bible. And as you know, in America, that can be a very contentious title, which you wouldn't think, because we pretend we're not Christian, but we're deeply Christian. And so there was all this talk about whether the book would get banned, and there was a whole camp that wanted the book to get banned because they thought it would sell more copies. But really, it's a simple thing. If you're a young person, you always experiment. And so my father, let's just say my father was raised in a very interesting generation. Was sort of at the cusp of the country coming into independence. So he'd grown up. He was born around just before quite a while before the Second World War. His father had been conscripted to fight in the Second World War from Nigeria. But we come from a warrior clan of people, and so all the rites of passage for men are very difficult. And then in many ways, part of it was to be able to create the ways in which you could switch on rage to go basically be a Viking. And so, but when you go through that and then you have to work in a government office, there isn't really anywhere to put this anger. So it often was misguided. So it was difficult growing up as a young man, 4 boys and this poor father. So we were very Catholic, and someone had given my father a beautiful King James Bible, which if you're Catholic, you know you're not even supposed to read it. And he had it on display, had a beautiful leather cover. And one summer, I was 9 and my brother was 13, Greg, who is also who the book is about. I don't know what we said. We were very rebellious. It's sort of when we were trying to test out our manhood. And as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a theory until you get punched in the face. So the Bible was used as a subjugation tool. It's literal colonization. So in anger, my brother and I started ripping out pages from the Psalms. If you've ever seen a Bible, it's a really beautiful paper. And we didn't know, but we would just fill it with oregano or thyme and roll them into cigarettes and smoke them. That was our revenge. And so after a while, the Bible starts to list like this. And so really the book is about all those, it's about just the holy reverence of reverence, but about 2 boys. And then I'll try and create a narrative through for you, and we'll read until we kind of run out of steam, and then we'll talk. Does that sound good? All right. You can hear me okay though, right? So I don't have to worry about that. Good. Okay. Flay. The point of a pen opens a hole into a soul's dereliction. This search for the right word bores through stone. Sunlight takes no measure of what is clung to. A man can place the half dome of a tomato, slice into flesh, and cut an island of loss. Migrant, punished by spice and the scent of cooking, you wake up on a cold day in another country and put your faith in hot rice and braised goat, and the persistent aftertaste of a lost home. Gospels are made of less than this. But outside it is morning, a summer breeze burns down to the water, and the ocean begins. Birthright. Thin pages brittle with words and two brothers, one elder. The biblical is unavoidable here, and there is the rub. To come to self, to skin, is to rip away another, separate, tear. Train snaking track, snaking thoughts, window as page, margin as frame, what is kept within, what slips away, and from beyond the willow's lazy bow into the river, beyond the crane stabbing for minnows in the shallows, beyond the reflected sunlight in the cathedral, the tint of stained glass, that addendum to light, the stemposite to grace. Surgeon. The train bores through corn like a weevil. Birds hop across drooping leaves like scribes. An immigrant, I try to read origin here, but cannot. Mighty nations erased in all but place names, reduced to fit the small malice of a conqueror's heart. What will not yield to the poet's gaze will be overwritten. Sure as ink rides the sway of paper, but there in a tear in the green and yellow, a red tractor idles like a slow burning coal. Fire. That man burning on television, skin melting somewhere between Africa and Lampedusa, flaming in the prow of a boat. You turn from the image and say, death will find you how it wills, and it will. The chemo in you is fire too, and in the end, in someone's heart, we all must burn. Cameo brooch. Outside, snow travels in unhurried drifts. Inside the overheated train, fog shrouds the dirty window, drawing mottled patterns. A second landscape of impermanence and breath, and with a finger I trace a cameo not unlike the brooches mother wore high on the neck. You were always her favorite, the best of us. How to broach influence, how to speak of us without speaking of father and mother, and a swath of light falls across the tray table, and Aunt trembles under the weight of the bright. I fold an origami bird, think of hand-rolled cigarettes made from Bible pages, suddenly given flight by flame, egrets immolated in the burn. White egret. Epigraph. The whole world is filled with the love of God. Kwame Dawes. A stream in a forest, and a boy fishing, heart aflame, head hush, tasting the world, lick and pant. The Holy Scripture is animal, not book. I should know. I have smoked the soul of God, psalms burning between fingers on an African afternoon, and how is it that death can open up an alleluia from the core of a man? And how easily the profound fritters away in words, and the simple wisdom of my brother, what you taste with abandon, even God cannot take from you. All my life, men with blackened insides have fought to keep the flutter of a white egret in my chest from bursting into flight, into glory. You doing okay? All right, just checking. Poets get so in love with what we're doing, we forget there are people in the room. One other fact I should mention, all my life my mother kept diaries, extensive diaries, and then she would burn every single one so that we couldn't find out what she was what she was chronicling. Then my sister found one and we hid it. And 20 years after her death, I found it. Cameo, cremation. Smoke and ash portend lost the night mother fed her diaries into flame, sheet by sheet, line by cursive line. And then a wind wove through enough to blow flame back, searing skin. She hesitated a moment, penitent, then pulled back. She let it hurt for 1 second too long, for regret or for the sweet torture of fire. And sometimes you just burn your life and begin again and even again. And a single blister rose on her hand, the size of a baby's heart. Thread. A small gutter in front of a wood and tin shack, and inside a woman and a sewing machine chatter in repair of things that can never be gathered again. For a forced migration, even Atlantic, even Mediterranean, for a flight from a definite death, for a small woman drowning to save her child. For slavery, the new heavy with the grit of desert, for slavery, the old heavy with salt water, for a boat furrowing ocean to plowed field. To make full restitution is an impossible dream. The final measure of a body's desperation turns to buoyancy, to wish, but not ever to the fact of ruin. The red earth of my homeland is both wound and suture. Nomad is the human urge. Fear is the need to stay. Word is what says, not even one of us will be forgotten. Glow. There was a fire in you, a delight in tasting the world. Touch, lick, roll, tweeze, pant, pinch, smoke. But that flicker of light was a burn too much for Father, and he made himself your fireman. He called it love, I think, when alone inside his head. Compassion, even, and how the world and everyone hurts us for our own good. And how a fist weaves to a tender touch, and the cut cane a mamba strike, and each bite of cane to flesh, this thing he tried to extinguish in you grew more tensile. And you would watch him prowl the yard, alert like a goat, and I would read the world to you. I would say, there are plums in Italy, so plump they're called nuns' thighs. And you drank it all in, beauty and irreverence. Then I went away to seminary in smoke and solitude. Church and the smell of incense always remind me of how we stole communion wafers for breakfast in a mud-walled chapel perched high on the edge of a cliff, lit only by flickering candles. A small awe. The afternoon feels like a vast distance, the sky heavy with rain clouds. The day is like a flickering screen, and what it illumines slips quickly to shadow. How age diminishes childhood to a fading stain on a tablecloth. Okra stew from a lunch served by the constrained heart of a mother longing for more. And how Giacometti's tortured bodies carry a redemption, always alluding to the Christ on the cross, perhaps. Or maybe just a simple, unadorned body of pain, marking the human crossing the desert of life. Reason always ends at the edge of water, ocean, lake, river, even a pond. The world we carry follows us everywhere, and our imagined home remains nostalgia, shiver, ache, loss, and also the flutter of release, and how pigeons lift in a cloud of frenzy, then settle back to the duty of crumbs. Grace. A boy we played with as children, a boy who never pushed anyone in soccer, a boy who struggled to kill chickens for dinner. That boy, grown to man, sharpened a machete, all the while chatting to his father, who lazily shelled and ate peanuts in the veranda shade. In getting up from the whetstone, testing the edge of the knife on his thumb, he climbed the 3 steps to his father and let loose his anger with one cut. He smiled, it was rumored, smiled and kissed the top of his father's head before walking off. The peanuts frothed through the father's throat, but such was the lineage of that anger that the old man in his 70s walked to hail a cab, only to die in the emergency room when they pried his hand away from the bloody gash of his throat. I want to make a poem of this, brother. I want to make a song of love. That boy, our cousin, that boy. But for the perverted beauty of grace, that boy was you. That boy was me. And still our father can die alone, which is his own kind of anger, its own kind of revenge. And one can wake up halfway across the world when a parent dies on the other side, wake up in a sweat-drenched panic at the very cusp of the crossing. There are many euphemisms for death in English, but for Igbo, death is final. It's a moment that is singular. Death comes, death takes. Do you remember all the boys in you that were that boy? And all the hate in you that died so you would not wet a stone? Grab a blade. Hone your anger to a fine edge. You must do, and I know because I see your crazy and ferocious love for your children. See the bees you keep in your small English garden, hate that has died to honey. Sorry, I was explaining that this happens. You don't read your book out for a while and then suddenly the poems catch you by surprise. I apologize. You better have ice cream ready for me after this. Ritual is journey. And suddenly it's raining, streaking train windows, and light becomes a bird, a particular flutter. What shadows let slip, tattoos pattern on skin, repair with needle and ink and the whisper of lineage. To be a man, to be black, to be a black man is a dangerous journey. My heart is a knot, Berlin a staff, wisdom won blow by blow. Father, I say, Father, mercy come. Brother, we share genes so old, England was still black, and Africa was the only present tense in the world. As we unzip tracks in flashes of light, I seek an impossible dream. Yet all rivers flow to the ocean. All the doors white men close in the face of my father cannot compare to the void in which my mother found no doors. Mercy, come. This is not a lament. Women deserve our awe. In Africa we say, he who strikes a woman strikes stone. And if women called out from all their loss and in all their power, blood would drown everything. And does that first black woman regret letting us all live? Still, ritual is journey. Atonement is real. As you lay dying, I asked, what is your biggest regret? Every kindness withheld, you said. Every flicker of pleasure denied, you said. Look, you said, sunlight. What is traveled, what is fragile? When you tear paper, you tear skin, rip a bleat from the throat that sings. Words can fall, but not sound. The universe was made from this. I never liked snakes, yet here I am, winding up the mountain in a train. If I must pray, I must slither through the underbrush, confess fire like the reptile that carried it in his primordial mouth, say amen. The first lie they tell in America is the lie of immigrants. The truth is America is a nation of refugees, of trauma, of displacement, and of fanatical hope. When we say immigrant, we mean I left home, but I have nowhere to arrive to. When they say immigrant, they mean an anxiety that leads to murder, erasure, indigenous, black, brown, and other bodies stamped into bedrock, into foundation, into sacrifice, deleted. Grief is a beast we must all ride, for the sublime yields only after the grotesque has been traveled with a grace, a living. Flower cannot precede root, And when we come upon that rot in the woods, brother, that body slowly sinking into earth and mulch, you poked its chest and it burst into a kaleidoscope of butterflies. A swarm of color, each one sorrow released, each one radiance in the dark forest of the self. In Japan, there is a fable. A koi fish that can swim up a waterfall becomes a dragon. Incantation. What words can you wrap around a dying brother, still dying, even now? A man who has not eaten for a month sips at water and says even thirst is a gift. He asks what other gift God has given him. I'm your gift, his daughter says from a corner, and he smiles and rasps, you can only unwrap a child once. The rest is prayer, and even more prayer. I sing softly to him in a language only the two of us speak, and he snores into my palm, breath and blood. The familiar is a texture we can trust. Oh, sorry, the familiar is a texture we cannot trust. Apparently you can't even trust me. A blue flame in this cold night, held to the tip of a rolled up psalm, ignites words to fire, to burn. You take a deep drag and time fills the air of fragrant smoke. You exhale slowly and the white cloud plumes a cloak for your hands. Passing it to me, you stretch your arm across pages, across myth and history, your shadow invisible in this deep night but present. And I remember the burning words, the Lord stretched the earth over the ocean. I inhale the chant, feel the power of a king, feel the tremor of strings and a boy's voice. But the promise of that spell is broken by the wince as you adjust your cane-saw buttocks. And how is it that a man can cross 50 and not have witness? How can I see an angry man in a parking lot with a knife and a dark bit of vengeance in his heart and still be surprised by the boy in him? How did I marvel at rain and moss and taste the delight of destroying the wet cement blocks made by a man who toiled alone in a blistering hot field to fill his life with order and hope? Years later, I will hear a psalm in Herpesi Rochistele's voice, and I will carry forever that beautiful husk of a South African poet's voice deep in the well of me, a resounding, word song right can save us. And finally, the calculus of faith. In the end, I realize every human body is a scripture. The first miracle was a mango, full and weighty with ripeness. The second miracle was a sheet of onion skin paper torn from a King James Bible, filled with oregano and thyme and smoked. The third miracle was the smooth turquoise of my mother's fountain pen, the scrape of it, the insistent pull of its nib, and words glorious and alive. My fear is a hole I crawl into, a hollowed out log, a curve in a stump. If you listen, in this book I'm reading, it is raining. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And now I want to welcome up to the lectern the chair of the English department, Dr. Nicole Smith. Wow. I feel little. I'm gonna come this way so I can see you. It is my great honor to present tonight to Chris Abani our medal, our Rilke medal. If he will come and join me, so I may have this privilege. Let's see.
Your Highness.
behalf of our department, of my colleagues, of our students, to thank you heartfully for spending all of the time that you did with us yesterday during the Q&A, which was, I think, life-changing for me. I went home and I told my 16-year-old boy, you should have been there. It was, I don't know what to say. It has left me speechless. Thank you for the time you spent with our students today, with my colleagues, and for reading for us tonight. It is, I am grateful, as are we all. Thank you.
So again, there are books for purchase in the back, or if you brought your copy with you, Chris will be up here, and I'm sure will gladly sign your book. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yeah, I'll grab my stuff.
Waters. Well, like you said, when you haven't read a poem for a while, it can surprise you.
Yeah.